Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Your Morning Drive. I am Logan, the host with the most, coming to you from the Georgia Highlands campus in Cartersville, Georgia. Shout out to Georgia Highlands for having us today. Georgia Highlands College, part of the university system of Georgia, serves more than 5,800 students across a few campuses with over 40 areas of study, including full options online. GHC offers accredited, affordable degrees at half the cost of many four-year schools. Known for strong retention, award-winning programs, and a huge regional impact, Georgia Highlands College is committed to student success, community engagement, and accessible education. So shout out to them for having us today. Before we dive in, of course, go ahead and follow on whatever platform you're listening on right now. If it's Spotify, if it's Apple, if it's YouTube, if you're watching us, make sure you hit follow, subscribe, make sure that episodes come to your phone every week without missing a beat. And subscribing is the easiest way to guarantee that. So go ahead and do that on whatever platform you're on. And of course, a comment, a rating, a review, it all helps. So, of course, for more behind the scenes fun, you can follow on social, all of the places, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, if you want to. We're on all of those places. So if you want to follow along, see some clips, check out sponsor information, everything in between, that is the place. My guest today is the current president of Georgia Highlands College, where he's led historic enrollment growth, expanded career-focused bachelor degrees, and earned national recognition for the institution. A first-generation graduate from Ensley, Alabama, he has built his career in championing success and opportunity in higher education. Since becoming president in 2022, he's guided GHC to record gains, earning honors like the Paragon and the White Rose Awards, and positioned the college as a finalist for the Aspen Prize for Community College Excellence. A true servant leader, he's committed to student success, community impact, and shaping the future of education. Please welcome my new friend, Dr. Mike Hobbs.
Hey, good morning, Logan.
How are you, Mike?
I'm doing fantastic. Hey, I'm honored to be here. I've heard such great things about you from so many people in the community. So it's truly my honor. But first of all, I have to say, I need to hire you just to walk behind me and repeat those things. But seriously, I always do have to put a caveat in there. You're only as strong as your team. And I have an amazing team. And every one of those awards or honors comes from their hard work and their hard dedication. I'm just lucky to be here. So.
Sure. No, Mike, I appreciate your time. You are, as I said, the current president of Georgia Highlands College. And so you're a busy man. So the fact that you gave me some time today is really, really cool for me. So I appreciate that tremendously. And likewise, I've heard great things about you from, Kelly, of course,
awesome.
Jason, Tim, who are just a hoot together.
Yeah. Stop by.
Shout out Southern Cove. Get you a trash can.
Love it.
Love me a trash can. Yeah. So many people have said great things and they said, oh, you got to get with Mike. And, most of the time I interview people and have conversations with people that are in the community, but never have I ever thought that I'd get the chance to talk to the president of a university and one that's in my backyard. I was telling Randy a second ago that I live just a mile and a half from here, right across the street from the AMC movie theater up the street. So, I'm super close. Yeah. So this is a lot of fun. And yeah, I'm excited to learn about you, Mike.
And first of all, that's way too much praise. And to be president of Georgia Highlands really goes back to, I believe, being a Christian, that it's a God thing. And I believe God put it in my heart to apply for this position, for the search firm to reach out to me, and every domino just fell in the right place. And so I'm honored to be here, and we have some great people here at Georgia Highlands. We have over 300 plus full-time employees, plus more than 200 part-time employees. So about 500 of us. We just hit 5,800 in enrollment for the fall. We still have the October term coming up. And so we're looking to do some amazing things. And like you were reading earlier, we've just had some great things happen to us lately. And I feel like that's a huge success to our people, but our students. One of the biggest things I love to say about our students is that 81% of my students work. at least 47% of those students work full time. And so, what that says about a Georgia Highlands graduate, when you hire one of my graduates, one of our graduates, you're bringing in somebody that knows how to show up at work with some grit, with talent, with problem solving skills, and knows how to get after it. Because it's not easy to go to college and complete college while you're working at all, more or less if you're working full time. And then you take on top of that, I guarantee you, and we don't have the stats for it, but I'd like to know, is how many of those people or those students that we're talking about in that percentage group are also taking care of their kids, taking care of their elderly parents, working 2 or 3 part-time jobs.
Maybe playing in a adult, leagues, sport
Sure,
leagues. Like, so
absolutely.
the fact that there's so many people that are doing so many things, and like you said, it's really attractive to an employer.
Oh, absolutely. Another stat I like to use, I believe in stats, especially when they're good in our
Oh, I
favor.
love
And
numbers.
we have them, as you can see on the president's conference room. I have 3 whiteboards because the other side of this one's loaded up with data on it too, constantly making my staff write things down. They're like, but we emailed it to you. I'm like, yeah, I know, but we're going to put it on a whiteboard.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
It's not
but
official until it's on the
that's
whiteboard.
it. That's it, man. You can text it or
Yeah.
Instagram it or whatever, but until I see it on a whiteboard, it's not a visual. Because I can take a picture of that and hold it. Remember this time you told me? No.
Yeah,
But what I was going to say is that 84% of Georgia Highlands graduates stay in Northwest Georgia. And so when I heard that stat, when I first got here, I thought, wow, we are the leading talent producer for Northwest Georgia. With our students, we've had over 250,000 students served. We're going to celebrate America's 250th anniversary next July with our 250,000 students served in Northwest Georgia and our other regions. So that's what I say to employers. If you're looking for somebody that has a little grit or knows how to put their shoulder into it, or comes into a situation with one leg back and leans in, a problem solver, it's my graduates. And I take pride in every single one of them. If I'm unfortunately at the hospital or in the ER, I'm constantly saying, "Hey, are you one of our nurses?" Or if I go to a restaurant, I ask the waitresses, "Are you in college somewhere?" In fact, my kids joke with me and they're like, "Dad, don't talk to every waiter. They don't all need to be in college." And I'm like, well, I disagree with you, but I also talk to the people at the car wash. I also talk to
yeah.
people that I run into anywhere. If you're young and you're doing a job that your back will allow you to do and your muscles will allow you to do, I love it. But we all get 40 and 50. And so that's one of the things I definitely want us to talk about is, right now there's this big push for these 18, 19-year-olds to go into business and industry. Don't go to college. College is a waste of 4 good working years. Or you hear, well, they're doing it at Harvard, they're doing this, or they're at Yale, they're doing that, or these Ivy League schools. But there's also colleges that are doing some great, amazing things. And I think Georgia Highlands falls into that role. And I think that's where our students get their strength. And so I don't think that it's business and industry versus higher education. I think there can be both. I have 2 daughters, and if one of them wants to be a welder, I will buy her pink welding helmet. Depends on which daughter it is. One daughter loves pink, one daughter loves purple. But I will buy her a welding helmet. But I also want her to go to college, take some human resource classes, some entrepreneur classes, some accounting classes, know how to manage a welding firm and then one day own a welding firm. Because believe it or not, you can't stop time. And I joke all the time. My folks hear me say this, but I went to a Braves baseball game the other day, and the 7th inning stretch to me always meant the concession stand was closing. And so I would have to run to the concession stand and get a soda and peanuts or popcorn. But this last 7th inning stretch I went to, I stood up and my Lord, rigor mortis was setting in. Everything was hurting. My back was hurting. My neck was hurting. I had to literally stretch because I had been sitting for 7 innings. And so 50 does that to you.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I just think our students have a little more grit. I have a great friend who's 92 years old, and he and I like to watch black and white movies or cowboy and Indian movies on Saturdays. And we had just watched John Wayne's True Grit
Mm.
right before the last graduation. And so when I stood up there and I looked out over our graduates and I saw moms and dads, a 77-year-old who was an EMT his entire life in Vietnam as a paramedic, went back to nursing school at 77. And when I look at and I saw, our hundreds of graduates, I thought, every single one of them, there's something special about them because they have to have grit. To be able to get here to walk across that stage, you got to know how to fight, and you got to know how to stay strong and determined and persistent. And that's what our graduates do. Sonny Perdue, the chancellor, former governor, former secretary of agriculture, my mentor, amazing man. He often says that higher education is the $1 million deal, that a person will make $1 million more in a lifetime with a college degree versus just a high school degree. And I think there's some value in that. I also think that not only is that extra $1 million, that's a fact. That's a statistical fact. I think it's even more than 1 million now. But what also is a fact is that as humans, I think we need to continue growing. And if you're going to be a welder your whole life, which welding, some of those guys make $150,000 a year. I think it's fantastic. But I would say to that person, let's also take some classes on human resources or how to manage people so that when you do get older, you can become a floor manager or then a manager of a firm and then a small business owner and then maybe a large business owner. So.
Well, I like that. There's a lot of things that you said there that stick out to me. Number one, what is your go-to baseball game concession?
What do I get at the concession
Yeah, what's your
stand?
if everything is made fresh, what are you getting?
Well, my ex-wife will tell you it's always nachos with extra peppers.
Oh, yes, Mike.
Has to be.
Love the
Yeah,
nachos,
yeah.
man. There's nothing that screams baseball than like ballpark nachos.
There's something about it. Something
Mhm.
about the cheese on your hands
Mhm.
and on your goatee. It's the game's about to wrap up. Is it going to get more exciting? But it doesn't matter if you got those nachos.
Yep.
And I always get the peppers, and I pay for that the next day. But no, it's got to be the nachos with peppers.
I love it. I love it. Very good. Very good. The other thing that stuck out to me, probably more important, is the fact that I really like that mindset about like, yeah, maybe you want to go and be a welder, and sure, we'll get you the equipment to become that
Absolutely.
welder, but I want you to go and learn how to run a welding company.
Absolutely.
Because it feels like in society, they just want young people, and by they, I just mean, society.
Sure.
Society wants people to go to school and learn how to be an employee.
Right.
They want you to learn how to be a great employee for someone else.
Right.
But they don't necessarily, as much as, America and everybody touts on how being an entrepreneur is the best thing ever and you should do it if you can, blah, blah, blah. Yet they don't prepare us for that.
100%.
Unless you go out of your way to prepare yourself for that.
That's it. And you hit the nail on the head. And I've been saying this recently. When we talk about those types of jobs, we talk about the onboarding, the entry part. We show a video of somebody in a clean warehouse with a white helmet and goggles and a safety vest on. And we're like, this guy makes $80,000 a year, which is great. And listen, I know how to run a bead, but that's about it. But we show the onboarding processing into getting into those types of jobs, but let's talk about the offboarding processes. And in full disclosure, I have a 2-year career tech degree. So why not say, hey, this is a president of a college with a 2-year tech degree, or say, this is the president of XY industry, and this is the 2-year degree they got. And then they got a bachelor's degree, then a master's degree, then maybe a PhD. And then let me take one step back and say that there's nothing wrong with somebody taking a job and working that one job for the rest of
I was thinking the same thing.
I think about, you're way too young to remember Laverne and Shirley. Randy might remember it, but Laverne and Shirley at the very beginning of the sitcom, it would show Laverne and Shirley both putting bottle caps on tops of bottles. And that was their job. They did that for 8 hours a day. And then they went home and they were in a bowling league and they hung out with the Happy Days crew and all those types of things. And they had extracurricular things in life that sustained them. And that is fantastic. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. Some people just want to fish, and maybe you go into a job that's going to be exactly the same for 40 years. And on the weekends you fish and that's where your true love is. There's absolutely
Nothing wrong with that.
But why do we stop at the onboarding process? My view is that we look at a pathway. And what I mean by that is, okay, you're going to come into business and industry at job A. And you can stay at job A you can be Laverne and Shirley for 40 years till you retire. But then let's say you want to go into job B, which is a manager's role. Well, you might need a little education to get into a manager's role. Then you want to go into a supervisor's role. You need a little more education. Then you want to go into the plant supervisor. Then you want to buy your own small business and compete. So then the more education that you have, the more successful you're going to be. And one thing that I always like to say to students, because you hear all the time, well, education is a waste of 4 good working years. And when my father came back in my life, that was one of the things that he said. And I still remember, it's been 30 years. But here's the thing about the water basket making degree that doesn't exist, but everybody talks about it. To get that degree, it requires 120 semester hours. I'm talking about, I'm not going to call out any specific degrees, but whatever degree you get requires 120 semester hours, which is equivalent to 40 classes. That's 10 a year for 4 years. Now, most of my students don't do that because my students work, but 40 classes. So think about this as an employer. When you talk about 40 classes, that's 40 professors that you as a student got to figure a way to maneuver through those 40 professors. And then at the end of the day, if you make those professors happy or you meet their expectations, then this is your GPA. And then as an employer, I look at those 40 classes, no matter what they're in, but I can see that you made 40 people, 40 professors with high level education degrees in their field, whatever that field is, which you figured out a way to make those 40 people happy, those 40 professors happy. As an employer, those 40 professors is the exact same thing as 40 customers, 40 clients, 40 bosses, 40 supervisors, 40 patients. And so it's a good indicator that if you can make those 40 professors happy, that you can make 40 patients happy or 40 bosses happy. Therefore, as an employer, you can make me happy. And all 3 of my kids are starting college this fall.
Wow.
I have a 20-year-old and two 18s. And if they came to me right now and said, Dad, it's going to take 6 years for me to get out of college. And I would ask why. And they would say, because I'm going to work, I'm going to do internships, I'm going to do co-ops. When I graduate from college at 24 instead of 22, I'm going to have a college degree in whatever it's in, but I'm also going to have 2 years of working experience. Mm-hmm. I would say, check, take it now. Yep. Now, would I let them just go and live in a fraternity sorting house for 6 years? No, they would have to be working and making some money to do something towards education. So I don't think that it's either or. I don't think it's go into business industry and leave college out. And I don't think it's go into college and leave business industry out. I want all my graduates to graduate with a loaded resume. That piece of paper on the wall, people are correct. It's not worth the paper it's written on. But the experience that you have, the things that you learn, the failures that I learn more from failures than I do successes.
Same here.
And I want my graduates to walk into an interview, and I want that interviewee, that talent finder, to look down and go, oh, Georgia Highlands. So this one's going to have a little extra grit. I know this person had to fight a little harder to get through. And so that's why I think Georgia Highlands is the best college.
Well, you also said something again that piqued my interest, and I kind of want to get your opinion on it with that 6-year college career, the one that you described of, I'm going to be doing, of course, my courses, but I'm also going to do internships and, explore other opportunities. I'm going to work part-time. I'm going to do all these things. It almost feels like that's required now because, a lot of these people, they graduate, and it wasn't like this when I graduated college, which was like 6 or 7 years ago. But it feels like every job now, an entry level position, you see that you need 5 years of experience. And it doesn't matter if it's a huge, well known corporation like Coca-Cola, or it doesn't matter if it's, just a generic, we'll use a welding firm. Everybody wants 5 years of experience. And I bet a lot of these young people, these college graduates, they get out of school and they said, well, I thought all I had to do was go to college and prove that I could get through 4 years of schooling and all these things. But I'm almost wondering, like, do you think that this is a negative thing that they want so much experience before an entry level position? Is there some good to it? Where do you kind of land on that? You know what I'm getting at?
Sure. No, 100%. And what I would say, as a person that has, like we mentioned, over 500 employees,
Yeah.
We hire a lot. And so what I would say to that is the reason they're asking for 5 years experience, in my opinion,
Sure.
is that because they've been burned. They've hired that fresh graduate straight out of college, and that graduate says, okay, I will accept your job, but I want to work from home on Fridays, and I want a corner office, and I want to dress casual every single day. And so what an employer knows, or a person that hires talent, what I know, that if you've made 5 years at one company, and that's a good, solid company, then you're going to come to me and your expectations are not going to be working from home a couple days a week, dressing casual every day, extended holidays, all those things that people are coming out of college expecting. We think all the time, and when you're looking at hiring people, we know as a candidate for a position, we know what their expectations of me is. If somebody's trying to hire me, I know what their expectations are. But I like to flip that upside down and say, what are their expectations? Not my expectations of them, but their expectations of me. And I think that that's where we get mixed up sometimes is the students are, well, here's my expectations. My expectation is I get to work from home a couple of days a week, dress casual, have the corner office, but they don't flip it and say, okay, what's their expectations? Well, employer's expectation is do the job that we hired you to do, be here, help others when they're struggling. If you're good enough to complete your job, then hopefully you're going to help others complete their job. And so I really think we have to look at expectations on both sides. I go back to what you said earlier, that it's almost expected. As a student who took the 6 years to get through my bachelor's degree, I was working through a few things.
That's okay. I took 5.
But I was working full time, and I didn't, both of my parents didn't graduate from high school. And so their expectations were, you're 18 years old, you're out of the house. I didn't understand the financial aid process. But one thing I want to roll back to, if you don't mind,
Sure.
is, right now when people are, for the most part, think about higher education, they think about the Ivy League schools. So I wanted to take a second to talk about the university system of Georgia, which I think is amazing. So inside the university system of Georgia, there's 4 types of colleges and universities. There are the research institutions. I like to call them the big dogs or the big jackets. That's Georgia Tech, UGA, Augusta Medical School, Georgia State, Kennesaw State's nipping at the heels of research institution. I think they will be soon. They just, I think, enrolled 52,000 for this fall.
Wow.
And so then after that, you have the comprehensive and state universities. I kind of combine those two together. And that's your Valdosta States, your UNG, Georgia Southern, those type of schools. And then you have your state colleges, and there's 9 of us up and down the state of Georgia. There's Gordon, Georgia Highlands, Atlanta Metro, Dalton, Coastal, South Georgia. There's 9 of us. East Georgia, I'm probably leaving somebody out.
Is Chat Tech one of those?
No, so that's the TCSG.
Okay.
So that's a great question. Nobody ever asked that. So that's the TCSG. That's a whole nother system.
Oh, wow. I would have never known that.
So they have a entirely different chancellor, entire different board of trustees than what we do. We're part of the university system of Georgia
Wow.
and the TCSG, totally
Is it
separate.
because it's got technical college in the
Sure.
name? And I'm sure other things, but
Right.
that's the reason why it's not called something else. It's got
Right.
technical in the
100%.
understood.
And we look at the 40 degrees that you mentioned, the 42-year degrees. Those are similar to technical degrees or transfer degrees. And so we like for them to be career ready or transfer ready when they finish the 2-year. And then the bachelor's degrees, we have 10 of those with 11, 12, and 13 on the docket. We've had a 150% increase in our bachelor's degree programs. But back to the 4 types. So you have the research institutions, you have the comprehensive and state universities, and then you have the state colleges. Georgia Highlands is $105 a credit hour. So a 2-year degree with us is $7,500. A 4-year bachelor's degree with us is approximately $15,000. So when you look at the Ivy Leagues and even the research ones, you're not going to get fit for $15,000. You're not going to graduate with that. That may be one semester or,
I was gonna say that's 1 year.
Yeah, 1 year
Yeah.
at least, right? But here's the key. Being a part of the university system of Georgia, if you take a History 1 class with the state college, or you take it with, or let's use calculus. You take calculus here at a state college, or you take calculus at a state or comprehensive university, or you take it at the Research 1. It has to be the exact same calculus course. We have what's called student learning outcomes. So if you take, it doesn't matter if you take it at Georgia Highlands or you take it at one of the big dogs, it's got to be the exact same calculus course. And so the way I look at it is, for $105 a credit hour, I've got to make sure to bring the same experiences, the same opportunities that you would have if you're at one of the research institutions. And that's a job as a president. I don't want my tuition to go up. I want a bachelor's degree for $15,000, but I still want you to have the exact same experience if you're at a research or a comprehensive university. And so that's a challenge as a president.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I love that. I love those numbers, first of all. I mean, $15,000 for a 4-year degree is really attractive, especially for those. And I think you were kind of getting at this earlier, but we got sidetracked. Of like when you go to these restaurants or you go to the car wash and you're talking to these young people and you're asking them questions, and I assume the goal in the back of your mind, it might be that if this waitress tells you that she's not in college and you say, oh, well, is there a reason for that? And she says, not really. I just can't afford it. I would assume then that you would say, well, you actually can at our college. You know, you think of the Kennesaw States and the UGAs and the Georgia Techs, and you think, there's no way I can afford a semester there. A semester at Kennesaw State is probably $7,500. And no disrespect to them. I mean, I went to KSU, hooty hoo. I graduated from there. But a lot of people, I think, assume that higher education is unobtainable solely because of the financial aspect. And that's not necessarily the case.
Well, it's so funny about that is when you said that about them coming to classes, I'm sure my entire staff rolled their eyes, because I'm infamous for giving out my business card, which has my cell phone number on it. And I'm like, call me. Now, I always say this, I've got to pass you to somebody else that can fix it, but I know who can fix your issue. Because Logan, you wouldn't believe how many of those waitresses or waiters say, oh, I took some classes, but then I dropped out, or I stopped out, or I couldn't afford it. You wouldn't believe how many of us will say that. And one of the things I do is I most presidents, I'm sure, but I give $500 a month out of my paycheck to Georgia Highlands. And so what I do with that is, when I meet that waitress or that young man at the car wash, or somebody that's cutting grass, or somebody that's doing something that's labor intensive, I tell them, I will pay for your first class. So I take that $500 a month, I set it aside, and I tell my staff, when somebody comes in and says, hey, this crazy guy came through the drive-through and gave me his business card, and he said to reach out to you, and that he's going to pay for my first class. And so usually it's the last dollar scholarship, and I will pay for it. If I tell you I will pay for it, I will pay for it. But a lot of times it's last dollar, and they're eligible for Pell Grant, they're eligible for Hope, they're eligible for other scholarships. And so I hardly ever have to give it out because we find other money and other
Sure.
resources for them. But absolutely, if they failed out and they've lost their Pell Grant and they've lost their Hope Scholarship, I'll pay for that first class.
But it's getting them in the
It's
door,
getting them in the door.
because otherwise, like I said a second ago, is they might just have it in their head that they can't afford to go to school, but they don't know about all these programs that exist to help people go to school. And you're saying that if all else fails, I'll pay for that first class.
I got you.
That's really cool, Mike. I love that. Great. That's a great mindset. Maybe I'll take you up on it.
Hey, I didn't know. But
kidding.
listen, hey, you wouldn't believe, hopefully they're, and I do it with nurses if they haven't completed their bachelor's degree, or dental hygienists. There are probably tons of them out there going, I thought I was the only one. But no, I do.
Your morning drive is also present to us by Good Days Canned Cocktails. Good Days are a classic cocktail brand created in a convenient, ready-to-drink canned format for any occasion, whether it's a pool day, a boat day, a beach day, a graduation, a wedding, a bar mitzvah, anything in between. Good Days are there for you. Good Days are ahead when they are in your cooler, your fridge, your anything in between. Good Days has your back. If you want to be one of the first to try their drink, you can do so by visiting drinkgooddays.com/pages/find-us to find a store near you selling their drink. Of course, you must be 21 years of age to consume and purchase.
And I think that's why my kids are always like, Dad, can we not just eat lunch together without you having to find out?
Yeah.
But I go to the starfish story. Are you familiar with the starfish story?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, it's one of my favorite stories. And I feel like it's me and God, being strong in my faith and being a Christian. And let me say this, I respect all religions. I went to Israel this summer. It was an amazing trip. I met two gentlemen that were both Muslim, married to Christian women, and one new friend that was Muslim and Christian at the same time. And we had some great, and he's become one of my best friends. So I respect all religions. As long as you have a God that you pray to, then you and I are definitely on the same page. But being a Christian, I think about God and I think about Jesus, our Lord and Savior, dying on the cross. And I think about the pathways that I have had in my life and the options and choices I had to make of which pathway I was going to go down. And I'll be honest, Logan, I made the wrong decision several times, and God allowed me to find a way back through somebody come up and say one word to me, or hello, or a smile, or, what can I do to help? So I feel like that I have to pay that forward. And so going to the starfish story, it's about a father and a son, and my son is one of the most precious things in my life, but he'll also tell you I'm harder on him than probably anybody. He sent me a meme, or whatever they're called, the other day, and it said, "You think you can hurt my feelings? I held the flashlight for my dad."
Yeah, that's a tough
one.
gig.
Yeah, but
That's a tough gig.
But he's such a great. I'm so proud of him. I'm so proud of all three of my kids. They're all unique and different, but I'm so proud of all three of them. But he's 18 years old and he's at Auburn this fall. And of course, any parent is nervous, but I know he can get himself out of any situation because he's seen how to do it. But so the story of the starfish is a father and son walking down the beach, and they come up on tens of thousands of starfish that have washed ashore. And I don't know if you've ever seen a starfish out of water, but they to me, it feels like they're grasping for air.
Mm-hmm.
They're little suckers, and I know that's not the right word. My EV&R degree people will be fussing at me, but they're breathing. They can't breathe. They need the water to survive. And so the son starts picking up starfish and starts throwing them back in the ocean. And, the father takes it as a learning moment for his son. He takes a teaching moment, I guess is the right word. And he says, son, there's thousands and thousands of these starfish. We cannot save all these starfish. I know that you want to, because you have love in your heart and you want to save them. And so the father, tries to explain to the son, you can't fix everybody. You can't save everybody. And so I picture my son and then the son picks up one of the starfish and throws it back in the ocean. He says, yeah, Dad, but I can save that one. And so it's really the father thinking he's teaching his son a lesson, but it becomes the son teaching the father a lesson. So anyway, I think about that, and I think about my son and how great he's doing.
Love that.
We might need to take a little quick break.
That's okay, Mike. That's okay.
Yeah, sorry.
It's okay.
But my kids mean a lot to me.
Sure.
Just like Georgia Highlands does. So anyway, let me take a drink of my Coke.
There you go. There you go. How we doing, Randy? Also, we've mentioned this name a couple times. Me and Mike are not the only one in the room.
Yes, we got one other in here.
We've got Randy in here, and Randy's taking some notes for us, amongst other things.
Randy became my buddy. We just met happenstance. He was taking pictures at an event, and everybody loved him. He was being so nice and so kind and generous to everyone.
Yep.
I went over to him and I said, would you let me hold your camera and take a picture of you and Lee Welch? I said, and he's like, why do you want to take my picture? I said, because you're
part of this too.
Yeah, you're part of this too. You're doing awesome. And so I took a picture of him and Lee in front of a Christmas tree at Ray Thacker's Grand Oak, which is fantastic if you've never been there for his brunches he does in the summer. Yeah. And he came here and covered me for my first day. That's right. He was one of my first people, and we've been friends ever since. And I invite him to things all the time. And I invite him, and then he shows up with a camera and writes a story about it. And really and truly, I invite him because he's my friend, not because he's a newspaper guy.
Sure.
And he and I are working on a couple of special projects together too. And we
Very
thought
cool.
Be
some gold in this conversation to make sure we jot down.
Well, and I think, kind of now after recovering a little bit, and I apologize for that.
No, dude, but it's totally okay.
Well,
it just shows how any dad feels about their kids, or any parent. It's an emotional thing. You just want your kids to do better than you did, and so to see them do great things is really it's a great thing.
Yeah. I laugh. My kids have my kind of dry sense of humor, but they've asked me to stay away from technology. And so one time I made a mistake and told my son, we were at an Auburn, Mississippi State basketball game. I went to Mississippi State as well. And my son and I took a picture with my preacher, Rick Hopkins, and his son, Had Hopkins. And it was about 4 or 5 years ago. And I said, hey, Hudson, retweet that on Facebook. And Hudson looked at me and he's like, Dad, just don't. Just don't.
Never speak again.
Exactly. That's how he looked at me. He was like, Dad, can't you pay somebody? And then to his defense, I did accidentally tag myself in somebody else's family portrait, of which I'm not a part of their family. I didn't know how to tag people in photos, so I'm not sure exactly how I did that. And so Instagram, Twitter, podcasts, I don't know how to listen to podcasts, so somebody will have to even play this one back to me. But my kids have begged me to stay away from technology.
Wow.
And so, but I do want to roll back and talk about why I am so passionate about these things.
Hit me.
And so a lot of people want to hear my story, because my story is funny. It's got some funny parts in it. It's got some funny parts, but I also think that I use humor to hide from people seeing who I am sometimes. Sometimes I don't feel like I belong where I am or the people that I'm with. I've made mistakes in my life that still eat me to this day. I went out from one of my first ever white tablecloth dinners and I ordered the salmon. And the two young ladies that were sitting across from me, two colleagues, started laughing and giggling. And one, I can remember this 20 years ago, and I remember it like it was yesterday, leaned over and said, what did he order? And she said, the salmon. And then they both just laughed. And I didn't even know what I had done wrong,
Mm-hmm.
And so later to find out that you're not supposed to use the L. Kind of like with you being from Illinois. Yeah. I had to whack that S off the end of it. But, or the time I put sauce on a charger plate. I mean, why put a plate out there if you're not supposed to use it? But so sometimes I use humor to kind of hide my things, but I'll never forget the embarrassment that I had. And they had a little chuckle out of it, and that's okay. But anyway, people want to hear my story. And what I really roll back to is my story is actually my mother's story. My mother is one of the strongest women that I've ever met. And then also my stepmother's story, which that will come into play too. She's a very strong woman, completely different, opposite ways of each other. But when I talk about my mom and how much she means to me, I have to look at what she grew up with. Her mother, my mom was born on December 19th, and in the 1930s, and my grandmother died giving birth to her. So she died on Christmas Day. And my mother, her whole life, had to struggle with not having a mother, and in the back of her mind thinking, did I take my mother's life? This was the 30s, so they didn't have the equipment that they have now to be able to recover from giving a birth. And so my mother grew up without a mom. And then my grandfather, who I never really knew, I think I may have met him once or twice, but as the story goes, was a raging alcoholic. And so she would tell stories about how he would take her to the Alabama Theater back in the 30s and the 40s and drop her off with a dime and leave her from 8 a.m. in the morning or whatever time it was he got up until 10, 11 o'clock at night. And the dime would pay her admissions. It would allow her to buy popcorn and stuff throughout the day. And she survived. She pulled through that. She gets pregnant at 15. Her and my father drop out of high school, get married. My oldest brother was born with a heart defect. He was born with a hole in his heart. And so imagine being 15 years old and having a baby that is disabled. He couldn't get blood into his oxygen. They called it the blue blood disease. And I don't know the specifics on it because I was so young and my mother didn't like to talk about it. But then they had 3 more children, and I was the oops baby. I was the one way down on the end. And then in around 1970-ish, within the same year, they lost 2 of my brothers. My mother and father did. And at the same time, when I was 6, my sister was 15. She followed in my mother's footsteps and dropped out of high school, never graduated from high school, got married into domestic violence situation, which ended up being torture for my mom, of course, because it's her only daughter,
Of course.
not having a mother to say, help me with this, and this part's a little tough, and my dad, at 6, when I was 6, my dad decided to leave us. And for years and years, I didn't know how to absorb that. I didn't know how to, I was angry, mad, hurt, and so.
Anyone would be.
Right. Because I guess in my world, I would have thought you lose 2 sons and you have another one, you wrap a bubble around that son.
That should bring your family closer together than ever.
Right. But now that I have children, I could see where that would be tough. When later in life, on my dad's deathbed, we prayed together. He asked me to pray. I wasn't as strong in my religion at the time, but he asked me to pray, and we did. We prayed. That's been 25 years ago, and every single night of my life, I pray. And I pray once I put you on my prayer list, you're there. I got a guy by the name of Dallas on my prayer list, and I don't even know where he is or who he is. He was dating one of my nieces, and I asked my pastor about that. I said, what do I do about Dallas on my prayers list? And he goes, well, he must still need the prayers. And I was like, okay. So Dallas, wherever you are in this world, I'm still praying for you, brother. But no, when I pray, when I put you on there, you're on there. And my dad is on there, and every single night my dad and I talk, and I have completely forgiven him. I beg forgiveness from him. I understand now, being a father myself, I don't know if I lost 2 sons, if I could have looked into the eyes of that 3rd son. So, but he tried. He came in and out of my life. He had a new family, which was great. I wish one of my greatest regrets in life is that I wasn't kinder to them. If I could go back and spend more time with them and love on them more than but you got to think, I was, 6 through 20, I was in competition with them in my mind.
Sure. Anyone would think that.
Right. And
I would.
Anyway, so long story short, which is not a short, everybody will tell you I don't have short stories, but my mom struggled through a lot. And it was just her and I for a long time, not having a father in her life, not having a mother. Also, finances. She had never worked. She'd given birth to 4 children. One was disabled. So she didn't know how to find a job. She didn't know how to do a resume. She didn't know what to do. So we laugh. My sister and I used to laugh before she passed away. She ended up being in another domestic issue, but she struggled her whole life. But we used to laugh that my mom was crafty. My mom had aliases. People would call the house looking for Robert Hobbs, and her name was Roberta, but she would get a credit card in Robert Hobbs, and they'd call, and she'd be like, he left us with all his bills. But we moved into public housing. I lived in public housing for a long time. I remember many nights. It was Sal's meat and crackers. For those of you that have ever had that, don't Google it. I still eat Spam today out of the can. I know it grosses my kids out. But Sal's meat was good, and the only thing you can find now close to it is Spam. And then for some reason we always had a huge block of wheel of cheese in our house, and so that was a good meal for me. So it didn't bother me.
Spam and cheese.
That's it, right? Well, Sal's meat's a little more spicier than Spam. But to my Inslee folks, don't worry. I have enough hot sauce in my refrigerator to spice up the Spam. But she and I struggled. We would move in the middle of the night, and she would always say, "We're not going to take our furniture. Don't take all your toys." But Logan, she always said, "We're going somewhere better. We're going to a better place. This new home I have for us is going to be better." And so my whole life, I was always going somewhere to be better. She never let me know that we were struggling. I can't imagine how many times that I ate that she probably didn't eat. We used to go parking in rest areas or camping in rest areas. And what's even funnier about that is, now, my mother understood how important education was, and that'll come into play later. But my mom would always looking for things to be better. And so every once in a while, she would get me into a private school. Then, about 6 months in or however long it took, they would figure out that she wouldn't pay for the private school. And so I would go back to the public school. And so pretty much until I was about 12 years old, I would do one semester in a private church school somewhere, and then I would spend the next semester in a public school. But what it did was it taught me what other people would do to be successful. In public school, we just came home and played.
Sure.
You came home, you stayed outside. You had the people that were also in public housing. They were your group, they were your people, and they took care of you. I had many neighborhood moms that helped raise me because my mom was working 3 or 4 jobs at this time. But also my mom had lost 2 sons, and her only daughter gets married at 15 into a bad situation. And then you got a little snot-nosed 6-year-old running around. So those other moms helped raise me, and I still love them as much as anything. But anyway, she gets me into a private school, and I get to be friends with this guy, and his family asked me to go to the beach. And I had never been to the beach. I think I was maybe in 2nd or 3rd grade. I can't remember exactly. But my mom's like, "Okay, well, you can go." And she gives me a little money. It was probably every single penny she had. But at the time, I'm 8, 9 years old. I don't know what things cost. But I never forget this because I can still remember it. We take off, and we stopped in one of the rest areas that I was familiar with. And so I looked at this family. So I'm with this family I'm with their son from a private school. This kid's been in private school his whole life. We pull into the rest area, and I look from the back seat, and I say, "Oh, are we spending the night here?" The father looks back and goes, "You can't spend the night here. This is use the bathroom." And as most 8 or 9-year-olds, I decide to correct an adult, and I say, "Yep. No, you can spend the night here. You just back your car right over there, and they'll let you sleep here." And the look on their face.
Yeah. Wow.
And once again, what have I done wrong? I've obviously done something wrong. But my mom and I sleep over here all the time. And I think back to when she and I used to go camping or parking or waiting on our new place that's going to be better, waiting on our new place to open up. So showering in a rest area or wiping off or what my mom used to call a blank bath, for you old people out there that probably know what that is. But to do those things, it was always worth it because we were always going somewhere better. And so, and what's so ironic about it, years later, I'm talking about like 3 years ago. So it's been almost 30, 40 years almost. I get a Facebook request friend from that guy. And he says, hey, is this Mike Hobbs that went to Bernie Points, grew up in Inslee, or what it was, Inslee West End kind of. We were all over Inslee. So we moved a lot. We used to move in the middle of the night, and you move in the middle of the night because
not a great situation.
Right, or you're skipping rent probably is where we're headed. But so I answer back and I'm like, wow, I'm going to get to redeem that look that we had in the car 30 years ago when they looked over me at the back seat. I'm fixing to get to redeem that by saying I have a PhD. I taught economics at Stanford University for 15 years. I'm president of a college. I mean, I'm fixing to I'm fixing to blow his mind. I'm fixing to go, yeah.
Hello, everybody. We're talking today about another new sponsor that's representing your morning drive. We are brought to you today by the Corporate Vine, where custom learning solutions and startup business coaching come together to empower learning professionals and leaders. They offer hands-on support from project management tools to tailored development programs designed to help your organization thrive. If you're investing in your team's growth and impact, go ahead and check them out at thecorporatevine.com to learn more information. That's thecorporatevine, VINE.com to learn more information.
You looked at me that time. And so I respond back, hey, it's great to hear from you. Yes, this is me. What have you been up to? How's your family? And I took a screenshot of it and I'll show it to you off when we finish. His response back to me was, we were talking about you the other day, and my mother wants to know if you still like sardine and mustard sandwiches. And I never responded, but I thought, well, I hadn't had one in a while, but I do like them. But isn't it just something that, you think you pull yourself out a little bit and you get hit back in the face with.
You never responded to him.
I never responded. No, because
did you take that as an insult?
Oh, 100%. Because sardines are cheap.
Wow.
Mustard's cheaper than ketchup. And so, that's what I,
wow.
so do you
think he meant the disrespect by it?
I don't know. I don't even do
being in your shoes though. Sorry to cut you off. In your shoes though, I probably would have read that like, insert ugly word there, but like,
to me,
who are you talking to?
Well,
like, what?
Yeah, I guess part of it was, and like I said, I don't even run my own Facebook page. So Nick runs it. Nick, thank God I have Nick. But I know on my Facebook page, I'm pretty sure it says president of a college, PhD in economics, vice president, dean of students. So surely he looked through my Facebook page, he found me. But the one thing he wanted to know about me was I still eating poor people food, is how I read that.
Not even that he could have led with, wow, if this is really you, this is so amazing that you've come back from just this horrific, not even horrific's not a fair word, but this troubling upbringing, this constant moving, the fact that you dropped on us on the way to the beach, that you've slept at a rest stop before, like you've come back from next to nothing, and the first thing he asks you if you like mustard and sardines. Now that we talk about it out loud, I mean,
I see your pictures of you in China on the Great Wall, or the pictures on your Facebook of you in Israel, or when you went to Australia. None of that, or how did you get a PhD? How did you teach at Stanford? Stanford's a big deal in Birmingham, but none of that. No, it was and I get, and maybe some of it is me because of the imposter syndrome.
Maybe,
it's like ordering the salmon again.
Or maybe it's a piece of you that's like, you don't get to make that joke.
Yeah, right.
Like, who are you to make that joke?
Right.
If I walk into a room and say, hey guys, if nothing else, I'll eat sardines and
There you go.
mustard sandwich.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But for someone else to make a comment about your upbringing, whether it was meant as a joke or not,
Right.
it's still like, you don't get to make that joke.
Yeah, it's almost
You don't
like
get to say that.
it's almost like, and this probably didn't happen. It's almost like they looked at my Facebook and went, "Oh my gosh, this is the guy that went to Florida with us, and this is the guy that ate sardine sandwiches, you know." And then so it's like they ignore. Yeah, he's a president of a college. He's done this, that, and the other, but he still ate sardine sandwiches, And they're not terrible with enough hot sauce.
And maybe, hey, if me being the petty guy that I am, is I'd say, yeah, I do love those sandwiches still, and I eat them in my office as the president of this college.
Right. As I look out over the campus.
Right.
Yeah,
as I have these one-on-ones with students and inspire them to move forward because I moved forward. Yeah. There's a lot of room for you to have been.
Well, and old habits are hard to break. I still do love Spam, and I throw some mustard on a sardine, eat them straight out of the can. And my kids even. So I put everything in the refrigerator. Everything, chips.
What?
Everything. I put everything in the refrigerator.
Bread?
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Well, I know people that do bread. That's not incredibly uncommon.
No,
but mean, chips?
I'm trying to think. Chips, candy. I grew up. You put everything in the refrigerator because for those of you that have lived in public housing, you have little night creatures that live there with you too. And if you leave,
they don't get in the fridge really. Or it's harder for them to get into the fridge.
If you leave crackers out or even cracker crumbs out, they will find you. And so my kids, even they'll come over and they'll be like, "Oh God, Dad's got potato chips in the refrigerator again." So little do they know, I'll take white bread, put the potato chips on a sandwich, put mustard on top of the potato chips, and squish it together.
Mike, everything you're eating is cold.
But you had to because you couldn't waste food.
Sure,
there was never wasted food. Ever.
Sure,
my stepmother would even when they came in my life, she would even put the food on the stove until it was gone. You didn't leave food, and food was a precious item to us. And so, but my kids take it in stride. They all have a great sense of humor, and I've taken my son to Inslee. I haven't taken my daughters, but I did take my son there, and he got to see the apartment complex that I grew up in, and it was covered in barbed wire still. So they didn't have to go through the things that I went through, but I made sure they knew about them, because I felt it was important. When they were about 10 years old, I took all three of them, even the two girls, and made them change a tire on a car. Now, have they changed the tire since that time when they were 10 years old? Probably not, but they have seen how a tire has been changed. And then I also think about with my kids too is, I'm not about the perfect man, nor was the perfect husband. I could have been a lot better, but I also want my kids to see what a good person's supposed to look like. Mm-hmm. Still open the door for my wife, my ex-wife now, but open the door for her, polite to her, because I want them to see what a good person's supposed to look like. And so I've been really pleased with how they've turned out. And so when I talk about the things that I've been through, I talk about them because I want people to see why I'm passionate about what I'm passionate about. And so to speed my story up a little bit, my mom has been very crafty her whole life. She ends up getting into cemetery sales where she sells at-need cemetery pieces. So people who lose somebody unexpectedly, mm-hmm. show up at a funeral home. There's a person there that works with them, helps them find a plot, helps them pick out a casket.
Sure.
And you think about somebody that's lost 3 children. And then how could you turn around and do that for 20 years? I think she worked in that business. But she's still with us. She does have dementia. Yeah. I try to go see her every Sunday.
Where's she at?
She's in Birmingham. She's in Birmingham. Okay. No, I'm the only child left that she has.
You go every week to see her?
I try to go every single Sunday.
Wow.
And then I try to see my kids every Sunday, but they're teenagers. So, trying to tie one of them down. You play second fiddle to everything.
We're not going to put your address on the air or anything, but do you live close to here as well?
I do. I live, Georgia Highlands has 5 campuses.
Yeah.
And so I try to pick the middle point. So I do live here now. And this is where I plan on being for the rest of my life.
Awesome.
I have fallen in love with Rome and
Yep.
Cartersville and Marietta and the people. This is where I want to be. Now, of course, if that first grandbaby comes, I might go where that first grandbaby
Well,
is.
of course.
I've been waiting on that for my whole life. But no, but just to talk about how I got into college, I think is key. So when I was about 10 or 11, we lived we lived in between Rickwood Field and Legion Field. Legion Field is where Alabama played all their home games for many, many years. And then they only played the Alabama-Auburn game there for many years.
Okay.
But it's the home of the Birmingham Stallions. So many things happened in Legion Field. I think they used to call her the Iron Lady. It was a huge stadium. It's still there. But I lived between it and then Rickwood Field. Rickwood Field is the oldest ballpark in the country, even older than Wrigley Field and Fenway Park. And in fact, last year, Major League Baseball had their summer game there. You remember they were doing a game out in the cornfields in Iowa to replicate what's the name of that movie? Field of Dreams. So they were having that game in Iowa. Well, I believe the people in Iowa sold the farm, so they had to move the game somewhere else. Well, last year it was at Rickwood Field because it was the old Negro Leagues where Satchel Paige, Robinson, so many people had played there. So many famous African-American baseball players, and also famous people who made it into major leagues. In fact, most people probably in your age group will remember when Michael Jordan went into baseball. That's where Michael Jordan played, was at the Birmingham Barons. And so I would work between Legion Field and Rickwood Field as a 11, 12-year-old. And the way it worked, now, of course, this was in the 70s, so it was before child labor laws. But what you would do is you would roll up to Legion Field or to Rickwood Field to the concession manager, and you would give him a $10 bill. He would then give you $20 worth of product, and like cotton candy, popcorn, hot dogs. Now, the big money was Cokes, but I couldn't carry the Cokes because I wasn't strong enough. So I would do cotton candy. I would do popcorn. And the key was to go sell. You'd sell everything was $1. You'd go sell it. Then you'd have $20. You'd put $10 in your pocket, take $10 more, give it to the concessions manager. He'd give you $20 more worth of product. So every tray that you sold, you made $10. Plus you got in to see the games. You got to kind of enjoy that piece of it. So when I was 11, 12 years old, I was doing that for years. And then when I was about 14, maybe even earlier than 14, I started solely working at Rickwood Field, the baseball complex, because they come up one day and they're like, "Hey, are you old enough to drive?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I didn't have a driver's license, but they said, "Well, go outside and help park cars." So I started parking cars, and then I got pretty good at parking cars. And so they put me over one gate. And then the next year they called me in. I was 16 years old. They called me in. They said, "We want you to be the outside parking director. We want you to handle all of the outside parking responsibilities." I said, "Well, can I still sell Cokes?" Because I was able to take Cokes by then. And they're like, "Yeah, you can come in a certain inning." So if you ever get an old Birmingham Barons magazine for like 1986 or whatever, you can open it up and there's a picture of me, of course, rocking the 80s. So when you see it, you'll see that's an 80s kid right there.
Right.
Wasn't even driving, and I was the parking director for the Birmingham Barons. And so kind of had worked my way up there. But to even go back and talk about other working stuff, and I think this is what we talked about at the beginning, the importance of education and work. I'll never forget when I was 14 years old, a friend of mine, Todd Griffiths, had gotten a job at Crystal's. And so I thought, well, I'll go get a job at Crystal's. Back then at 14, you could get a motorcycle license. So I had figured out how to ride a motorcycle, and I rode my motorcycle at 14 years old over to Crystal's and applied for a job. And they said, "Well, the only thing we have is from 11 at night till 7 o'clock in the morning." And I said, "Well, I can do that shift. It's no problem. And I'll just go to school the next day and it'll all work out." So I worked mainly Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. But so my job, my first ever tax paying job, 14, almost 15 years old, was sitting in the Crystal Hamburger dining room, cleaning up messes of people that would come into Crystal's between 11 at night and 7 o'clock in the morning. So now you're laughing at that. So that means you've been to Crystal's between 11 o'clock and 7 o'clock in the morning. but
maybe once or twice.
Maybe once or twice. And this was before drive-throughs. So
Wow.
everybody came in. And full disclosure, those of you that know the Crystals on 3rd Avenue West, about half a mile down the road was a gentleman's club by the name of Sammy's. And so Sammy's usually closed somewhere around 1 or 2 o'clock.
Yep.
Yeah.
Midnight rush.
So about 2 o'clock, yeah, I'd get that midnight rush. But now also some of the colleagues at Sammy's would come in. So I got to know Alexis, Mercedes, Corvette, Porsche, and other names very well because they would come in with their new met friends. But they made hell of a mess. And it was hilarious. I don't know if y'all remember, but the yellow and orange ketchup bottles. People would take the red ketchup bottle and make a heart with it and then write "Steve loves Lucy" on the heart, which is hilarious because then you would leave and somebody else would clean up that mess. But then one morning a guy comes in, he's like, "Hey, do you know how to make biscuits?" And I'm not one to say that I don't know how to do anything. So of course I said, "Oh, absolutely, make biscuits all the time." And I probably had never made a biscuit before in my life. He said, "Well, we're opening a Popeye's chicken down the street. Once you get off at 7, why don't you come down to Popeye's and make biscuits for us?" I was like, "I'll do it. I'll be there tomorrow." So I went, by that time I was in a club in high school called DECA, and they would allow us to adjust our schedule. So I pushed, my classes didn't start till 10. And so I would work at Crystal's from 11 to 7. Then I'd go down to Popeye's and make biscuits. And I still make a really good biscuit. I've used that trait throughout my life.
Heck yeah.
Because Popeye's does have the best biscuits.
They do.
Shout out to Popeye's.
Yeah.
Well, then that guy becomes a district manager for KFC. And he says, "Hey, I got an assistant manager position at KFC that paid, I think I was making $2.75 an hour, $3 an hour. And he's like, I can pay you $6 an hour." And I was a junior in high school and nobody was making money like that. So I gave up on Crystals and I gave up on Popeyes and I started working at KFC. And when I graduated from high school, and I promise this story comes to complete closure in just a second. When I graduated from high school, I was assistant manager at KFC. I'd also gotten a job working at a lumber yard, loading lumber trucks. So I would do that in the morning, load lumber trucks. Then I would go to school and then I would go to KFC. And, and then plus I still had my parking manager job at Rickwood Field. And so when I graduated from high school, I remember taking a yellow pad. Remember the yellow legal pads? Sure. Taking the yellow legal pad and saying, okay, if I worked at KFC this many hours a week times overtime hours equals this much pay. When I work at Rickwood Field, I make this, I think I made $15 a night, maybe $30 on double headers. I can make this amount of much money. If I keep working at the lumber yard, everything I had all surrounded working and going into life. I was dating somebody and I was like, okay, I can buy her this kind of ring. We can get this kind of apartment. I had that yellow legal pad.
You had the whole plan.
I had the whole plan, and to give my mom credit, that's what my mom used to do. Like I would come home and I would see that yellow legal pad with, Robert's bills, Roberta's bills, her other aliases that she had. But when I graduated from high school, that's where I thought one day I'm going to manage a KFC. One day I'm going to be a district manager. One day I might own a KFC, or I may own the lumberyard. My dad was in lumber sales. And so, I didn't know where I was going. So I graduate from high school.
Hey guys, let's talk about another partner of the podcast, Branded and Devoted Designs. Are you looking to level up your company's merch game? Your brand deserves better than boring swag. If you contact Branded and Devoted Designs, you can level up with custom hats, shirts, tumblers, mugs, and more that your customers and clients will brag about. Go to www.brandedanddevoted.designs.com to make your brand stick out. Mention that Logan from Your Morning Drive sent you, and they will give you 10% off of your order. That's brandedanddevoted.designs.com. Tell them Logan sent you from Your Morning Drive for 10% off your order.
My mom comes up to me at graduation. She's tearful. I'm the first in the family to graduate. She gives me a white envelope with a card inside of it. And now as nimble and agile as my mom is and as crafty as she is, I'm thinking there's no telling what's in this envelope. But I'm pretty sure it's something for me to have a good time when I go to the beach. And so we load up in the car with my buddies and we start heading down to the beach, and we stopped in Opelika, Alabama, for those of you that have been there, at a Texaco. And so I hadn't opened that card for my mom yet. So we figured out a way to go in and buy sodas, again with air quotes, sodas and chips. And I say, hey, hold on a second, guys. I guarantee you I got some money in this card. And I open up that card, and kind of like in Forrest Gump when the little feather falls out of the backpack, a white receipt fell out of that card, you know, and, you know, it has all the sweet things that a mother would write, you know, the
Sure.
first graduate in it. And I reach down and I pick up that white receipt, and she had paid for one college semester at the local junior college.
Wow.
And so, you know, so that was my mom's way of nudging me, giving me advice. She didn't tell me what was in there. There was some money in there too for the chips and soda.
Sure.
But that one receipt, for back then, you paid for the whole college semester. Like, it was one price.
Mhm.
It wasn't where you paid by semester hour like it is now.
Mhm.
And it was at a local community college by the name of Jefferson State. And I didn't even take the classes at the campus, what they would consider their main campus. I took it at an extension center at a high school. And I remember they had such low resources. As an administrator, I laugh at this. I remember the professor complaining that they didn't have erasers, and he'd have to erase things with his bare hand.
Dang.
And, you know, as an administrator
Times are
now,
tough,
as an administrator now, I'm like, I know why he didn't have an eraser. But that one class, or excuse me, that one semester of college credit was life-changing. It's that starfish. It's that nudge. It's that business card that somebody gives you and says, I'll pay for one class.
Yep.
You know, I go back to, you know, my religion and my faith, and I only know 5 Bible verses, so don't think I'm a great theologian, but I do have 5 Bible verses that I love. And the one I love the most is 2 Corinthians. It talks about that God and Jesus, God our Father, gives us love, compassion, and comfort in our time of trouble, so that we can give others love, compassion, and comfort in their time of trouble. And I think that that's what we do at Georgia Highlands. And I think that's what we do at state colleges. You know, 84% of my graduates stay in Northwest Georgia. I guarantee you, if you took my employees, faculty, and staff, every single one of them, for some reason, are here because somebody helped them. We do not pay enough for people to be here for the money. We pay decent and we have great benefits, but you can go 20 miles down the road and Kennesaw State can almost pay you double. You can go 20 more miles down the road and Georgia Tech can pay you triple. So my employees, my colleagues, and my students are here for a reason. And I feel like it's because, for a lot of us, it's because somebody helped us. And I go back to that Bible verse that says, you know, comfort and compassion in our time of troubles, so that we can give comfort and compassion to others in their time of trouble. And I really think that that's us. And I think that that's what my mom did. Was, you know, my mom saw what education could do for somebody. She knew it was important. She could have took that and paid for herself to get some college classes. She probably could have took that and bought a new suit for work to make her look more snazzy at work.
Sure.
You know, or she could have took it out and went and had a good time with that money. But instead, she invested in me. And so that's what I look at when I meet somebody. And yeah, if they're doing a labor intensive job, I will ask them, you know, what is their long-term goal? And if they even give me an inch of, I would like to do college, then I press to get them to come here, because I think Georgia Highlands does the best of all of it, because of our people, because of our faculty and our staff. And what's ironic is I later become vice president of that college. And I think that that's so full circle.
Yeah.
But then that leads to something else. And I know we might be getting short on time, but I'm a big believer in you are who you surround yourself with. There's a saying that I can't stand, but it is true, is the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And I used to have a supervisor or a boss that would say that all the time. Like, we would be dealing with management issues, and they would say, well, that's such and such a son or daughter. The apple don't fall far from the tree. Now, of course, I didn't tell him that, but how bad that bothered me, how bad that ate me up, because, but then so many times it was true. So the phrase that I do like is, you are who you surround yourself with. And I was over student disciplinary for about 15 years, give or take, at both UAB and Jefferson State mainly. But I would tell students that all the time. If you're hanging out with the D's and F's, guess what? You're probably going to be a D and F. If you're hanging out with the thugs and the punks, then you're probably a thug or punk. You are who you surround yourself with. So I heard a person say, the first time I heard someone say, you are who you surround yourself with, was about 20 years ago. I was working for a college, and this individual was giving the college $2 million. This individual was one of the, if not the most wealthiest men in the state of Alabama. In fact, he had a house that had a guitar as a pool. Just incredible. Half of the stadiums are named after him. Half the interstates were named after him. But he said, you are who you surround yourself with. Now, the reason that struck me was because I realized, and that goes back to when I was over student disciplinary, I would tell students all the time that if you're hanging out with the D's or F's, you're going to be a D or F. If you're hanging out with punks or scum, then most likely you're in that category. You are who you hang out with. Now, the funny part about it is that individual spent after saying that individual spent many, many years in prison. And I truly believe, because I met him and I spent a lot of time with him, he had a good heart. But I think he surrounded himself with the wrong people. So he went from being one of the most wealthiest men in the state of Alabama to being in prison and losing everything, because he did the do what I say, not do what I do. And he ended up surrounding himself with the wrong people, did some things that he shouldn't have done, and ended up spending a lifetime in prison. So how is that relevant to Jeff State? So this is one of the funny stories I always like to tell. One day I was sitting in class, maybe my second semester. I didn't do well my first semester or my first year, but I was about ready to stop. This isn't for me. I passed everything without ever studying. All of a sudden I get to college and not studying doesn't work. And this guy turns around and starts talking to me. And I'm sitting in the far back as I can. And he turns around and starts talking to me. And he's like the most outgoing person I've ever met. He's dating 2 or 3 girls in the class. I think he was dating one of the teachers. I mean, he was that outgoing. He would ask anybody. He was that guy. He was the Mac Daddy of Jefferson State. And so I started hanging out with him. But what was so cool about him was he wasn't scared of anything. He would hit anything head on. And in fact, one of the first things he would say is he'd go, okay, hey, well, meet me here and we'll park here. And why is that important? Well, because when I went to school, I felt my car was what the kids used to call a hoopty, right? I had the carpet on the dashboard. I had the gold hubcaps. It was painted candy apple red with gold stripes. There was more invested in the stereo system than it was into the 72 Vega. Of course, this was in the late 80s, and to own a 72 Vega wasn't always so I would park it in the very furthest parking space. And I knew how long it would take me to walk to class, hide in the back of the classroom, pray nobody would ask me a question, pray nobody would talk to me, because I didn't feel like I deserved to be there. And then all of a sudden you got this guy turning around talking to me and showing me pictures of all these girls he's going out with and talking to the professor like they were best friends. And so he and I got to be really, really good friends. Now, what was so unique about our friendship was he was from a very rural area known as Odenville, Alabama, for those of you that, or actually he was from Margaret, Alabama, which is even more rural. And then I was from Inslee, Alabama, which is very urban, very, very. And so the first time we go to his house, he doesn't take his keys out of the ignition. And I was like, well, how are you going to open your house? He goes, well, we don't lock our door. I was like, well, you might want to start doing that, because you don't lock your door in Inslee. strange things that happen to you. But I also remember when we pulled up, there was live chickens walking around. And Logan, I'd never seen a live chicken before. I'd seen them on TV, but I've never
in the flesh.
I've never seen one in the flesh. And he says this isn't true, but we were in a 240ZX. For those of you that remember that car, it was low to the ground. I swear to this day, I remember those chickens looking in the window. They were that big of chickens. They were so big they could look in the window. And I don't know if they were jumping up on the car, but I wasn't getting out of the car with live chickens walking around.
Heck no.
And so he has to come and get me out of the car and shoo the chickens away, and picks one of them up by its neck and wraps it in 6 under its wing. And I'm like, oh my God, I just killed that chicken. He's like, no, I just put it to sleep. And I'm like, so I'm 18 years old seeing things I'd never seen, only on, Andy Griffith or, the farmer's market, but never seen a live chicken. He doesn't have a door. He doesn't have a key to the door of his house. He also lives under a tin roof. And, where I grew up in Inslee, if you've ever slept under a tin roof, it sounds like gunshots going off.
Oh, yeah.
And being from Inslee, we had gunshots going off quite often. And so to sleep under a tin roof felt like I was in the middle of a war. But then I finally like, okay, this guy's so cool. He's awesome. Maybe he won't judge me. And he never did. His name is Shane, and he's still to this day one of my best friends. I talked to him this morning, actually. He and I are buying a brick together, but we met at Jefferson State. And so we do the rural thing. Then finally he wants to go see what Inslee looks like. And, we pull up, you have, burglar bars on the doors, burglar bars on the windows, 6 padlocks, a broom pressed up against the handle. I slept with a 22 under my pillow. He had never seen things. I can only imagine the culture shock. He went back and told his parents, there's guns everywhere. There's all the food's in the refrigerator. There's chips and crackers.
He thought you were a serial killer.
Yeah, right. He's like,
He's like, what's going on with this guy?
But what was so awesome about him, believe it or not, I was a little ahead of him in English, and he was a little ahead of me in mathematics, maybe a lot ahead of me in mathematics. And he stopped taking math courses until I caught up with him so that we could get through mathematics together. I stopped taking English courses till he caught up with me, and we did math and English together, and we did classes together. And he taught me this new thing called studying on a Friday night. You're going to study all Friday, and then we're going to blow it out on a Saturday, right? But to me, I was either working or going to school or going on dates, or I was dating somebody at that time, but studying was never in my vocabulary. Sure. And it was the craziest thing. When you study for a test, you actually do better on the test.
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought that? If I'd known that 2 years earlier, it might not have took me 6 years to get out. But like I said, but to this day, he came to my investiture. He's coming to our scholarship gala on September 18th. He's been that one true friend that you get in a lifetime. But he also challenged me. Doing something with a buddy is so important. And so when every semester I try and go to talk to 5 or 10 classes, I just pop up in the classroom. Sorry, faculty. They usually let me come in. I love just walking up and down the halls and going into the classroom on the first day. And first of all, I want to thank the students for being here. They're my boss, and they're our customers. So I thank them for being here. But then I also tell them, don't sit in the back of the classroom. Get to know your neighbors. If you have bad handwriting, look on somebody's paper, see who has good handwriting, and that needs to be your study buddy. Get to know somebody, because my students are ultimately going to miss a class because the car won't crank, or the bus didn't show up, or their boss made them work on a day. And you don't want to wait until that day happens to ask somebody to share notes. And so just as simple as swapping cell phone numbers or talking to someone can mean the difference between you getting something on a test, or you getting something in a study session and you missing something. And you never know, you might be saving that person's life. That person might be your starfish. You might be their starfish. I tell students this all the time it's okay to be uncomfortable. And in fact, when you're uncomfortable, that's when you learn the most. If you're completely comfortable, there's nothing like dropping the air down to 60 degrees and getting under the covers, right? Ooh. I love that. And watching Dateline, but I learned nothing. I don't grow from that. But when I come into a room and somebody says, we're going to do an icebreaker, I'm like, oh God, please don't make me do an icebreaker. But then when the icebreaker's over I've met 4 or 5 new people. I've laughed. I've got telephone numbers, may have made a connection that brings resources to Georgia Highlands.
There you go.
And so be uncomfortable. Being in college is about the experience of being uncomfortable and learning when you're comfortable. If you hit a home run every single time, you're not learning anything. It's when you make mistakes is when you learn. So he and I going through college together, I end up helping him get a job at Jefferson State. After I left UAB, I went to Jefferson State. I ended up getting him a job at Jefferson State, and now he's equivalent to a vice chancellor for the Alabama system. So you've got 2 starfish, an urban, kid that, doesn't know what he's supposed to be doing, and a rural kid that knew how to make a chicken go to sleep without killing it, becoming best friends, working together, getting through everything together, going to his kids' weddings and his kids' events, and him coming to my kids' events. I think it's hope. That there's hope out there. Nobody's going to give you anything. I tell students this too. When you earn something, things just taste better. They're sweeter. They feel better. Somebody gives you something, it's like, oh, this is really nice. I mean, like the World Series ring the baseball team gave me from when the Georgia Highlands Chargers went to the World Series last year. Plug for Dash and his team. Come out and watch them play in our brand new stadium. But when they gave me that ring, I cherish it and I love it. In fact, I bought a box and I have it in a box. But if I'd have been on that team and I hit a World Series, I most likely would have that ring on.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I would.
Yeah, right. And so I still wear it sometimes, Dash. But when you earn something, when you earn a grade, when you hit that home run or you hit that free throw or you write that paper or that proposal or you bring a team together and you lead that team, people will tell you all the time, I don't like working in a team. There's always somebody that doesn't do their job. Well, guess what? That's life.
Yeah.
You're going to have that crazy uncle that comes to Thanksgiving and he's only going to bring ice and plates, right? And that's probably me.
Or chips that are chips really cold for some reason.
Or you want me to put these chips in the fridge? But you're always going to have that one person. And there's nothing better to pull off an event or pull off a proposal or a project or win a ball game when you've had that piece. And so that's what my story to students is. Be uncomfortable. If you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing. You pay or your parents pay money for you to be here. Make us earn it. Talk to those professors. Don't wait until you have a tragedy in your life to go to the professor and say, hey, I need to take the final next week because X happened to me. Talk to them throughout the semester. And then you say, hey, you remember how I told you I was having this plumbing issue? Well, this happened. Is there any way I can have another day to study for the test? They're real people. They're uncomfortable too. Like I said, I taught economics at Sanford for 15 years. I was scared to death for every single class. I'm scared to death when I go to stuff now. People think, oh, you love to talk only about things I'm passionate about. Anyway, so that was kind of that piece. Later in life, I have to tell this story. I can't tell too much of it, but I'm going to tell a little bit of it. People always want to hear, how did my 2 moms end up getting detained in a Mexican jail? So sadly, it's true. The best part about it is before they took this road trip, they stopped at a Circuit City, which used to be the original Best Buy, and they bought a tape recorder. So a lot of this is taped. But so when my father came back fully in my life, my mother would lose custody of me every once in a while. And I understood why. And I always understood she was coming back and it was always going to be better.
Yep.
But sometimes I would go to live with my sister or other family, or sometimes I would live with my father and his family, his new family. And we had a good relationship. I still laugh. When I would stay with my father, my bed was in a hallway. So you couldn't, but you do, but when you're in situations like that, you do what you have to do. But my dad was trying, and he was trying to be a father. Of course, his father was born in the 19s or even earlier. So he didn't really have the leave it to be their beaver father or the Brady Bunch father, or even the Cosby dad, which wouldn't be good now, but
Yeah, yeah.
The Cosby dad that he played on TV, not the
Sure.
actual person. But see, I grew up seeing those things, thinking that that's how a dad should be. My whole life, I just wanted to throw the ball with my dad one time. That to me would have been amazing. But my dad comes back in my life, so I have a brother and a sister who I love dearly. I'm still super close to my little brother. He's amazing. My stepmother comes in my life. Now, my mom is sweet, kind, crafty, nimble, but does everything with passion and emotion, and probably I'm more like her. Well, my dad swung the pendulum the opposite way for my stepmother. My stepmother is a badass. I mean, she, drinks, smokes, lets you know exactly what she's thinking, exactly when she's thinking it. She was working as a nurse at a prison and got into a fight with a prisoner. I'm pretty sure she whooped his ass, but he also broke her back into several places. And so my stepmother has been on end-of-life medicine for 25 years. I mean, heavy duty morphine, all kinds of crazy
Because of this
things.
incident?
Yes. And so my father passes, he dies. And like I said, we prayed on his deathbed, which was cathartic for me and life-changing for me. Like I said, he and I still talk every night, and he's been the father that I needed him to be. So somehow my mother and my stepmother move in together for a little while. They're two totally opposites. My stepmother smokes, my mother doesn't smoke. Imagine trying to live together. When people smoke, they have to smoke. Nobody smokes because they want to. It's a habit.
Sure.
And I've had friends try to get off of smoking, and it's almost
Tough.
impossible. And then imagine you don't smoke and you're with somebody that smokes. So their relationship was probably rocky, but they made it work. My mom and my stepmom. Well, and I don't know if I have the story exactly right, but my stepmother has something in San Diego that she wants to go to. Well, by this time she's not allowed to drive. She shouldn't be driving. And somehow my mom says, well, I'll take you to San Diego. And so they load up in the car together. This is before Waze and before cell phones the way they are now. And I guess a map. And they stop at Circuit City and they get a tape recorder. Now on the recordings, it's just them two arguing the whole way down there. I think they had maybe watched Thelma and Louise together or something, but I think some of it was for the kids' entertainment.
Sure.
Like, Bobby, slow down. Johnny L, stop smoking.
Yeah, sure.
Bobby and Johnny L are my two moms. And just them two going at it the whole ride. Well, somehow they get into Texas and hang a left. And so I get a phone. Yeah.
Hang a left.
Yeah, they hang a left instead of going straight to San Diego. I won't tell much more of that story. But let's just say the constable that called me said, wanted X amount of money to release both of them. And, Miss Hobbs 1 and Miss Hobbs 2 was how he was discussing them. Miss Hobbs 1 had a 38 in her purse and a 45 in the glove box. Luckily registered both to her. She would register. She would just get right up to the limits of catching a case and then getting right off of it.
Right.
And then I think he said my Miss Hobbs 2 had enough morphine to take a donkey down. But so I was able to figure out a way to send money to get them released. And there's a whole story in that, but we'll skip that.
Yep.
Anyway, I get them released. An hour later, they call back and they're like, we've got a problem. Miss Hobbs 2 won't leave without her medicine. And as I told you, she's not scared of anybody.
No.
I mean, they could have been the whole federales could have been there. She'd have took them on. And I could hear her in the background. I was like, look, that's on you. I said, if you want to keep them,
that's your problem.
That's your problem. I sent you what you told me to send you, and I'm busted. And about an hour later, they let them go because trust me, I'm sure she was giving them.
Sure.
But what's so ironic is my mom will be 90 next month, or in December, excuse me. And my stepmother, I think she is 75. She's a lot younger than my dad. He went younger and opposite of my mom, but they're still friends. They still
I love that.
Recently talk on the telephone. Now my mom doesn't know who she's talking to, but she does have dementia. But my stepmother checks on her. My brother checks on her.
Yeah.
I guess what was that TV show, Modern Family? So it was kind of the modern family.
Yeah.
We just survived together, and we still love each other. And it's so funny that that incident happened 20 plus years ago. This last Christmas, my sister-in-law, who's married to my brother, who I love her. She's your best wife, Steve. I'm glad you, after 3 or 4 tries, he finally got the best one he could have
Takes a
ever
couple
had.
tries
Takes a couple
sometimes.
tries.
That's okay.
I get it. Yeah.
That's okay.
He was working a few things out. He is my brother. So, but anyway, she calls me, and she's so fantastic. So I answer the phone, and she's like, "Hey, we're sitting here with Jonelle, and she's telling us a story about the time her and Bobby were in Vegas together. Do you know anything about them two being in Vegas?" And I was like, "No, I've never heard anything about them being in Vegas, but you know, about them being in the Mexican holding cell." And she's like, "No, I don't know that story." So we kind of compared stories a little bit, and it's just a modern family, and I'm proud of them. I hope they're proud of me. And my mom doesn't know that I'm a president of a college, but that's okay.
That is all right. That is all
So
right. Mike, want to transition here into the back part of the episode. But before that, I just kind of wanted to ask, what excites you, kind of going back to Georgia Highlands, what excites you about the future of Georgia Highlands? I mean, you've gotten to this point, you're a few years into your role here, and you've already implemented a lot of great things that have sparked growth and recognition for the college. But what excites you about the future? I mean, what opportunities do you see for the staff, for the students in the years to come? What do you what kind of stuff can you get them excited about?
Well, I think you're great. I mean, I think you're dead on. It's about opportunities. In 2019, we had 6,200 students. COVID took a shot at us, and then at the same time, the comprehensive, or the state universities, did away with their ACT requirements, and those are coming back next fall.
Okay.
And so we're really hoping that that's going to be a game changer for us. But with that being said, when I arrived in 22, we had 4,700 students. As of this fall, we hit 5,801, which is more than 1,100 students in the last 3 years. So I'm really proud of that. And that doesn't have to do with me. It has to do with my team.
Sure.
My team has pulled that up. I mean, outside of the few waitresses and waiters and nurses and
Car
wash
washers.
guys,
Yeah.
and the car wash guy right now is going, he's talking about me. But the continued growth, I wouldn't trade Georgia Highlands for any other school in the world, more or less another school in Georgia. And I think part of it is because of Rome, Cartersville, Dallas, and Marietta. It just means something different. Those towns and those communities are growing. It's like they say in real estate: location, location, location. But I also think it's because in Rome and in Cartersville and in Dallas and Marietta, it just means a little more. And it also means that you got to earn what you have. And that comes back to it feeling better and tasting better when you earn it. And even though I've been here 4 years, I'm constantly meeting people from our 4 or 5 areas that pulled themselves up by their bootstraps, that are entrepreneurs, that fought to get through college. And as I mentioned earlier, we've had 250,000 students cross our doors. And I'm excited about the next 250,000. I did make a statement that if we got back to 6,000, that I would swim across Paris Lake, which is on our Rome campus. It's a 55-acre lake. And if we got to 5,800 this fall. We lost some of those because of a drop for non-payment, which breaks my heart. And that's what we're looking at on the board up there, because I wanted to know, to me, those are starfish on that board.
Sure.
Every single one of them is a human heart, a human person, a human life that we can change. And it doesn't just change their lives, it changes their kids' lives and their grandkids' lives, and generational change. So what am I excited about? We're looking at taking our athletics into 4 years. We have 2 conferences, both NAIA, that are courting us. I want my athletes to be able to stay 4 years instead of only 2. Right now, we're in a 2-year conference. Adding the 10th bachelor's degree last year, and with bachelor degree number 11, which I believe is an education bachelor's degree. I had to get my provost to tell us the specifics on them, but it's an education bachelor's degree. Number 11, I believe, is going to be is going to be cybersecurity, and then or 11 and 12 may be tied with each other, which is health sciences with a sports management piece to it. We have so many sports opportunities here because of Lake Point being less than 2 miles away.
Yep.
We also have the Falcons, the Hawks, the soccer stuff. There's so many opportunities in healthcare and sports management that we're excited. So all three of those degrees should be here hopefully by the end of next year. That'll give us a total of 13. I want to keep growing that, but I only want degrees that are growing in the job market. So, we've done away with a couple of degrees because the students just couldn't find jobs in them.
Sure.
Like I said earlier, it's not about that piece of paper on the wall. It's the experience that you have.
Right.
And as a talent hire, when I look at somebody, I want to look, can you solve problems? But I also want you to have a little experience. Like one of our bachelor's degrees is in logistics. Home Depot is our number one non-healthcare employer. So if anybody knows anybody from Home Depot, I'm trying to get in with them. Atrium Healthcare, which has our nursing degree. You can attend Georgia Highlands. Atrium picks up tuition fees, books, supplies, everything out the door. So $15,000 for a bachelor's degree becomes $0. Now you do have a 2-year commitment with them, but you can do that 2-year commitment and every single tuition fee dollar has been covered by Atrium Healthcare. We had 95 students take Atrium up on that scholarship last year. That means there's 95 nurses in the pipeline to work for them. So imagine if you're the HR director at Atrium Healthcare.
Hey guys, I want to talk to you a little bit about the company that makes your morning drive happen every week. Are you looking to elevate your business and your brand? Hammerhead Creations is here to help. They offer top-tier marketing services, including social media management, website design, and Google page optimization, ensuring your business reaches the right audience. Whether it's a side hustle or your full-time grind, their expert team, me, is ready to help you grow. Plus, if you're into podcasting like me, Hammerhead Creations offers full support for both in-house shows and external podcast creation. From concept to production, we will help you bring your ideas to life. Visit www.hammerheadcreations.com and discover how we can take your business or your podcast or both to the next level. Hammerhead Creations, swim with the big sharks.
And you got 95 nurses that have already said, I will come work for you for 2 years. Our nursing degree, are you familiar with the NCLEX?
I'm not.
Okay, so the NCLEX, for those of you don't know, is similar to the bar exam. Everybody's familiar with the bar. It doesn't matter if you go to Sanford or you go to UGA or if you go to Randy's law school, the law degree doesn't matter. It's whether or not you pass that bar. That's how you know you can practice.
Right.
So it doesn't matter if you go to Georgia Highlands Nursing School or to Berry or to Shorter or to Kennesaw State or UGA. If you don't pass that NCLEX, you're not a nurse.
You're not in.
Right. So on average, Georgia Highlands nurses, 95% of every 100 students that take the NCLEX in the first year pass it. So we have on average 95% success rate in passing.
That's awesome.
Guess what ours was last year?
83.
100%.
Oh.
100%. No, we're at 100%. 100. I think 109 nurses took it, and 109 nurses passed it.
That's incredible.
Isn't that incredible?
That's amazing. You don't see numbers like that.
$7,500 for a 2-year degree, or $15,000 for a bachelor's degree, and so we make you a nurse. But then what you make after you do that and you get in there and earn that, that's where it helps. And one of the things that Atrium Healthcare has helped us do is they gave us a $7 million grant. Kurt Stunkel was just named one of the greatest connectors, funders of the year for the entire USG system. He won this thing that looks like an Oscar Saturday night. He was so happy. He was there. His family was there. We're all smiling for him. But he granted us that $7 million. And what that did was they did 3 big things. One is it paid tuition and fees for anybody that wanted them for nursing. That was huge. But that was a very small portion. I would say even less than 10%. The second big piece he did, which was probably about 50 to 60%, was upgraded our equipment. We have the very best nursing equipment that money can buy. I would challenge Harvard or Yale to step into our nursing labs. And I mean, we have a mannequin that's $500,000. We have a mannequin that can give birth. I mean, you would not believe the experiences that our nurses are doing. But now here's why I've got to connect to the Home Depots of the world and the Red Lightning Logistics of the world and those people of the world, because here's what Atrium did that I think is a game changer. Atrium allowed us to pay our nursing faculty a stipend, a little bit more. So I pay nursing faculty $55,000 a year, $55,000 for a nursing faculty. Nurses can make that working a Baylor shift. But now because of the Atrium, I can pay them more. And then what I'm up against is the hospitals that'll pay them six figures. I've got an institution 20 miles down the road that can pay 20,000 more, 70, 85,000. And then there's another institution, another 20 more miles down the road, they can pay another $20,000. So I finally get a good faculty member. Well, guess what? I can lose them to a hospital. I can lose them to one of the colleges that are 20 miles down the road, a private school that's 5 miles down the road, or to one of the bigger research institutions that's 40 miles down the road. But because now we can pay with that stipend, we can pay what they would make in downtown Atlanta. And now who in the world would rather choose to live and pay the cost of living in Atlanta, or have to drive to Atlanta, or stay here as a faculty member, now make what they could make in downtown or what they could make out in business industry? They're going to choose to stay here.
Absolutely.
So for the first time in 15 years, at least 15 years, we had a 100% retention rate in nursing faculty, not just in nursing students, but 100% of my nursing faculty stayed to the next year. And that's what's key, because I tell people that invest in us, if you want to give a scholarship to Georgia Highlands, we would love to have it. We have a scholarship gala coming up on September 18th. You can log in, you can donate, you can buy tickets. Sid Bream from the Atlanta Braves is going to be our keynote, and a band called Moxie. I don't know much about them, but anyway, September 18th, small little plug there. But this is what I tell people. You can give a scholarship. You could give $15,000 and you could pay for one person's entire education. $7,500, you could pay for one person's entire 2-year degree. Or you could help me retain faculty. And each faculty member teaches 6 to 7 classes. Each class on average has 25 to 30 people in it. Now that faculty member is affecting 300 students a semester times 3 semesters. That's 900 students. So you can give me $15,000 for scholarship. We will love you, and we'll celebrate you, and we'll give you that student's name, and you can track their progress. You can give me $15,000 to hang on to a faculty member, and he or she is going to touch 900 students' souls, 900 starfish every year. And so we've been trying to, that Atrium agreement, we're trying to, Dr. Lisa Jellum is who crafted the Atrium agreement. She's also working with our School of Business, our School of STEM, our School of Social and Behavioral and Liberal Arts. We want to have business partners like we have with Atrium, because go all the way back to the numbers we've been talking about. 85% of my graduates stay in Northwest Georgia. We're training talent for your footprint. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm excited about. I'm excited about athletics. I'm excited about our students. I love graduation. I love what we do. You know, the old saying, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. Well, there's some days out there, but most days, I would say most all days are fantastic. I love what I do. I love my team. I wear my emotions on my sleeve. My greatest fear for so many years was my tombstone was going to read, "He was too nice." That was my greatest fear. He was too nice. And I hid that. You know, I was scared of it. And then I started worrying, you know, if I'm not your cup of tea, that's okay. I don't have to make everybody happy. I try to do what I think is best. I try to take my 33 years in higher education and try to take us down the path that I've seen work before. I'm not one of these that's going to just jump out there and do something wild and crazy. But when I first got here, Dr. Sarah Coakley had started our 8-week classes. And so now you can take 4 or 5 classes in 16 weeks, or you can take 2 classes in 8 weeks and 2 classes in the second 8 weeks and still cover what you cover in 16. I love that. I think that fits our students. So now we have some students that take one class. So let's say you're taking chemistry, Sarah's profession. You take chemistry. You might want that in 16 weeks, right? But you know you're not going to be a public speaker, and you want to do public speaking in 8 weeks. Just knock it out. It's like taking cough syrup. Just get it over with, right? And so, but then we have some students that take nothing but the first 8 and then the second 8. We have students that'll take one class online, one class in Rome, one class in Cartersville, and one class in Dallas because they live in Dallas, work in Rome, and drive through Cartersville, and that's what their schedule fits best. Our students don't take 12 and 15 semester hours. Our students take 9.5 semester hours. But I guarantee you, every one of them is working or living through a life challenge. And I would take that student that takes 6 years and lives through life and lives life and works life over a 4-year graduate any day.
Heck yeah. Mike, there comes a point in every conversation I have where I get to ask a collection of rapid fire questions. We just learned your story. We learned where you come from. We know what you're doing now, but I just kind of want to know who you are just as a dude, as Mike.
I love it.
We can discuss them if needed, but I know we want to get out of here in a second, so we'll do rapid fire. No, it's okay.
I got people loading up out there.
Good stuff. I know. They're all loading in. What's your favorite movie?
My favorite movie. Gosh, it depends on the genre. It's definitely something in the 80s, 1984. Shout out to my ex-wife. She loved 1984. But oh my gosh, that is so tough. Comedy would be Tommy Boy.
Great movie.
Yeah, Tommy Boy. Let's go with comedy since we're kind of trying to keep it lighthearted. Tommy Boy, I can quote the entire movie.
Oh, I love Tommy Boy.
Yeah, great movie.
There's never a time that I'm not in a hotel and I knock on the door and just go,
yes. Oh,
there's no way I don't do that.
I was at the USG Gala yesterday, and when I was checking out, I could hear somebody walking through the hall going, housekeeping. Then she'd knock, housekeeping. And
it's amazing.
Great movie. Great movie.
I think you answered this one earlier on, but your first job ever?
Well, it depends on my first tax-paying job was at Crystal's Hamburgers. But I worked at flea markets. I worked concession stands. I had my mother tell me I could do a yard sale one time. I think she meant the things in my room, but I sold the phone and the vacuum cleaner. I got a little trouble for that one, but so I've been hustling my whole life. But yeah, tax paying job for the IRS out there. It was Crystal's on 3rd Avenue West.
Yeah. Let's say you're playing in that World Series and you're about to come out to bat. What's your walkout song?
Oh my gosh. Well, my son's walkout song, mine and his favorite song is the Eminem song, Mom's Spaghetti on My Sweater. What is that?
Yeah. I just heard it the other night.
Take yourself.
Lose yourself?
Lose yourself. That's it. Yeah, lose yourself. But I'm also one of the fellows in the Aspen President Fellowship, and we had to come up with a walkout song for this coming September. I'm going to some event, and every president has to have a walkout song. And with my team, we chose Elton John's "I'm Still Standing."
There you go.
Because
very good.
No matter what you go through, just keep standing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very good. You get to organize yourself a music festival. You get to pick the 3 headliners. Yes. They could be alive or dead.
Oh, yes.
Who are they?
Thank you for giving me 3. Oh man. Well, I like a good rhythm, so I'd want to, go out with a bang. But let's say I started off slowly. I go with Styx. Too Much Time on My Hands. Tommy Shaw, the guitarist for Styx, is from Alabama. He's a huge Auburn fan. I've always wanted to meet him, but he doesn't meet people. But I'd love to meet him one day. So we would have to start off rocking with Styx to get the blood flowing. And on a side note, I had front row tickets and I got to strum his guitar to Too Much Time on My Hand. It was in 1998, I think. I don't know. My wife was there. She'd have to correct you on that, or correct me on that. And she's pretty good at that. So, I'm just kidding. But anyway, so I would go with Styx, and then I would have to jump into Elton John, man. Elton John, have you never seen him in concert? He is fantastic. And then I would have to blow it out with Kiss.
There you go.
Yeah.
Very good.
Detroit City. Now my Inslee folks, I probably, if I had an alternate or would trade out, would be Digital Underground.
Okay.
I love me some Digital Underground, Sugar Hill Gang. That's what I grew up listening to.
Sure.
So.
Very good. The day that you're not working or being a dad, which is very few and far between, how do you take care of yourself? What do you do for self-care?
Yeah. Probably like we talked about earlier, I dropped the air to about 65 and put it on Dateline with the sound off.
Love it.
And
Eat some cold chips.
yeah, eat some cold chips. Absolutely. Get a can of Spam out.
There you go.
Mix some mustard and hot sauce together.
Sure.
Goes
Very
good
good
with popcorn as well.
Very good. Very good. What's your biggest fear?
That this is all a dream, that somebody taps me on the shoulder and says, I don't know if you've ever seen the Warren Beatty movie, Heaven Can Wait, where they put him in a different body. My greatest fear is that this life that I'm living in is not real. And that goes to my children. I wanted children, not growing up with brothers and sisters. I lost my 2 brothers at 6. My sister was out of my life at 6, and not having family. My mother did not have brothers or sisters. She had a half sister but I never knew them or their family very well. And then my father not having brothers or sisters, not having uncles. I didn't have that crazy uncle. I think now I'm the crazy uncle. But yeah, so I think the family I have, the opportunity I have, it just feels surreal. And I just think somebody's going to tap me on the shoulder.
Yeah.
And, one day it'll be God tapping me, and I pray every night and ask him for one more day to do one more thing. And he keeps waking me up. So
very good. And then lastly, Mike, what is your main motivator? What pushes you? What keeps you going? What is your morning drive?
I think it's that first day of classes when I go see those students, or when it's graduation and I see students, or I always had this thing when I had a student disciplinary and I would connect with a student, I would always say, don't disappear on me. I don't care what you end up doing, what ends up happening to you, don't disappear on me. I will never change my cell phone number. Don't disappear on me. And, everybody knows Chicago's story. We didn't get to talk about it today, but Chicago's story is such an amazing story. I still talk to him, at least once a month. He calls me Pop. He's a son to me. I've got, Edward, Keyshawn. I got those stories out there that, we were talking about earlier. You can't make everybody happy.
Sure.
And I get burned 1 out of 10 times. I get burned badly.
Sure.
But it's those other 9 out of 10 times. It's that paying it forward. That's what gets me up and gets my engine cranked.
I love that, Mike. Well, Mike, thank you so much for this.
Yeah.
I am so lucky to have gotten to hear your story and where you come from, and it's super inspiring stuff. So I know Mom is proud, whether she knows she's proud or not. I'm sure she's extremely proud of you just staying standing.
Stay standing.
It's really, really cool stuff, man. So, I mean, do you want to plug the college one more time,
please,
and advertise and
yes, absolutely.
Tell people how to learn more information?
Please let me do that. Like I said, we hit 5,800 students. We still have our October registration to go. We're growing in athletics. We've added varsity women's volleyball. We're adding women's flag football. I'm trying to find a donor to help me build a soccer field. So if anybody out there wants to build a soccer field, I have the land. I already have it graded off. We've got a $12 million baseball, softball complex. We've redone the gymnasium, brand new floor. So many exciting things going on. We have 5 campuses. We have the original campus, which is on 6 Mile, Cedartown Highway, Highway 27, I believe. We have over 197 acres out there with a 55-acre lake. We host a fishing rodeo. We do trick or trunk out there. We do so many things getting people. I want people on my campus. You come up to Cartersville. Cartersville is our largest student population campus. We have over 247 acres here. We're surrounded by 4 amazing museums. The Savoy Car Museum is right next door to us. They currently have the largest ever Duesenberg display in the Southeast ever. They have 12 Duesenbergs there. You got to go see those things. Are amazing. The Booth Museum, the Western Art Museum is simply amazing. Everybody's been to the Tellus. We had an art donor give us over $1 million worth of art.
Wow.
So I'll show it to you before you leave. It's less than 100 yards from where you're sitting right now.
Wow.
We keep it locked up for special occasions.
Sure.
But for Georgia Highlands to get that, think about that. That's
what an honor.
It's an honor. It's a Renoir, a Rembrandt, Andy Warhol, some amazing things. And then you go to our Dallas campus, which is in the heart of Paulding. Paulding is the second fastest growing county in the state of Georgia.
Wow.
It's the 7th fastest growing county in the country.
Wow.
So we're wanting to do more. We're hoping when the ACT score went away, we went from about 600 to 700 students down to about 200.
Okay.
So we're thinking that will rejuvenate us when
Sure.
the ACT comes back. And then our Marietta campus, at one time we had over 1,500 students in our Marietta campus. The ACT, SAT score going away did the same thing to it. It's down to under 400, but we're hoping that those campuses are going to revitalize. There's so many things going on. Reach out to us. I do this. It scares everybody on my staff, but at every orientation I attend, I give out my cell phone number. And I will say that students have been so respectful and so delightful to talking to you. And you talk about kind of what cranks my engine and gets me going, laughing at that picture as it scrolls by. But it's when the student reaches out to me and goes, "Are you really the president? Are you really answering these text messages?" So anybody out there, if there's something that you want to connect with Georgia Highlands, give me a call. My direct cell phone number is 205-913-0442, 205-913-0442. And I'm sure Stephanie and Nick are going, "Oh my God, he just gave his phone number out." But I don't care. Listen, if you prank call me, I'll just block you. But if I get to change that one person that needs a little help, my email address is mhobbs@highlands.edu, mhobbs@highlands.edu. And if you know anybody at Home Depot, tell them we got logistics graduates coming out the ears and we want to send them to them, business administration graduates. I hope I didn't leave off any. We talked about the environmental natural sciences degree. The BIM degree. Let me just take 2 seconds.
BIM, we love BIM.
Building Information Modeling and Management is a mix between engineering and architecture. To me, it looks like my kids, like a fancy Minecraft.
Yeah.
But they do a lot of things ocular and remotely. You can do 4-year bachelor's degree with us at Georgia Highlands for the $15,000, or you can do 3 years at Georgia Highlands and 1.5 years at Georgia Tech, and you get 2 bachelor's degrees.
Oh, hey.
Yeah. So now you pay the $105 a credit hour at Georgia Highlands, but Tech, who we love, is not going to charge you $105.
No,
so Dr. Cabrera is amazing, and maybe I can work a deal out with him, but yeah, it's not $105 an hour there. But imagine getting a Georgia Highlands and a Georgia Tech degree.
That's insane.
To get in Georgia Tech, they say on their website it's a 31 on the ACT.
Wow.
So imagine you're graduating from Pepperell High School or Cartersville High School with a 29 on the ACT, and your dream is ever going to Georgia Tech. Well, guess what? Now you can come here for 3 years and knock out majority of your courses and work, get some experience, then do 1.5 years at Georgia Tech, and you get 2 bachelor's degrees. And Georgia Tech's bachelor's degree hanging on the wall does say a little bit.
Sure.
It does say a little bit. I'm proud to be in the same system with them.
Yeah.
But yeah, just come see us. We had a egg hunt on our campus. We had over 500 people come to the egg hunt. We had a fishing rodeo on our Rome campus. We had over 300 people. I want to do more with the community. We're not a community college. I mean, we have the bachelor's degrees and the workforce ready degrees and the continuing education program, but we're a college for the community. So I would say we're a college for the community, not a community college, and for the community and the region. I want to stretch out. We now have in-state residency for Alabama, Tennessee, South Carolina, and Florida.
Very cool.
5 states, same rate. So if you're hearing this from another state and it's one of those 5, you too can share in the $100 a credit hour as well. So,
that's amazing.
Yeah, a lot of great things.
Guys, I'll make sure to put the information of that stuff in the description of the episode so that if you're interested in any of the things that Mike and I talked about, you can learn more with ease. Mike, I know this is super cool for me. I appreciate your time. I love that I got to spend this time with you. Now I know you. The hype was real. So I just thank you for your time. This is awesome.
I'm honored. I feel like I know you too, man. We're going to be brothers from another mother for life.
Cool with me.
Once I share all that story with somebody. But no, I'm honored. And again, I just want to give praise to my faculty, my staff, and my students, and my community. We have some great elected local officials. If you live in one of these 4 or 5 counties, you're in an amazing place. Location, location, location.
Yep. Amen. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Follow on the socials. We'll see you guys next time.